So we want to start this morning by thanking all of our parents for joining this meeting. We're very excited that you are here to hear what our plan is for this year. I am Dr. Cantu. I'm the principal from Dominguez. I'll let Ms. Lamas, who's sitting right next to me, introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nora Lamas. I'm the assistant principal here at Dominguez, and we want to thank you for being with us today.
So the format for our meeting this morning, we will go ahead and start speaking with the instructional component of the year. After we go over instruction, we will allow moments for questions coming from parents. Then after that, we will move to our safety plan. At the end of the safety plan, we will also open it for questions. However, please feel free during this time to use the chat feature. We do have a chat feature on Zoom. Our nurse and our counselor, Ms. Guajardo and Ms. Arellano, you can't see their faces, but they are on, and they will be responding to any questions that you're putting on chat all throughout the meeting. So if you're wondering something in the moment, please put in the chat and they'll go ahead and give you a response. If for some reason something wasn't answered throughout the meeting, then we can go ahead and bring that up for open discussion. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen now with the first document, which is going to be instructional. Alrighty, so what you guys see before you is our remote instructional plan. Please keep in mind this is still in draft form. It will be final after all principals conclude their meetings. And so part of the reason why we want to have meetings are just to get feedback from parents as to our plan before this does become final guidance. All parents will also receive a copy of this remote instructional plan as they come pick up all the schedules and all the information that you will need for the school year. So I will only be speaking in this document. It will eventually have information for all grade levels. Of course, today Ms. Lamas and I will only be addressing 5th and 6th grade since those are the grades on our campus. So the first thing that's kind of new is I want to talk about some new language that TA has put forth. So this school year, of course, is different since we are dealing with the pandemic, and they really are giving parents the option of what they believe is best for their students. So as a parent, you will have the option to have your child have virtual instruction throughout the whole year. And that's one of the options available to you. You also have the option to have your child come to regular school, which is face-to-face. Now, because virtual is going to be an option, TA has distinguished between two different types of virtual instruction. So if you see here, one of the words is synchronous. And what synchronous means is that instruction will be live. So at a point during the day, your child will be live with other children and their teacher, where there will be live instruction, kind of like right now. We're all live on this Zoom, and so we're learning about what is going on. That would be considered synchronous. They also distinguish that virtual instruction can also be asynchronous, and that's the word that you'll see here. Asynchronous means that it is self-paced. It does not require your child to be live with the teacher or with any other children in order for that to be accomplished. So that could be something like maybe the teacher has a video, your child watches that video and then is able to accomplish that task by themselves, or maybe it's even a pre-recorded lesson of the teacher themselves, but they're just not there for that live instruction. So the model that we will be using here at La Feria ISD is going to be a blend of both synchronous and asynchronous. And then I'll show you exactly what that looks like. Right as we are right now at this moment, we know that the first 4 weeks of school are going to be remote for all students. So every single child in La Feria ISD will be going through our virtual instruction for the first 4 weeks. After that, you as a parent can decide if you want to continue virtual or if you're going to go ahead and transition your child to face-to-face. So the schedule that we will be presenting right now is going to be what our students will follow for the first 4 weeks of school. Now, keep in mind that, you know, this whole situation has been changing, you know, sometimes even on a daily basis. So just because right now we're 4 weeks virtual doesn't mean that maybe next week that might change. So it's a very fluid situation based on numbers. We also have different guidance that's coming from TA that has really allowed us to kind of have to be flexible with our plans, and sometimes they're continuously changing. So this is a draft. If at any point there are more changes or things that will impact, we will communicate that to you. You know, the district is using social media to put out notices to parents. We have been making phone calls here at Dominguez to make sure that we're touching base with every single parent about what the year will look like at this moment. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll start with 5th grade. So for the first 4 weeks, we will be at the district level providing the resources that we believe students will need during virtual instruction. So if we've been calling, if you don't have a device, the district will be providing a device. Same thing for Wi-Fi. If you don't have access to that at your house, we're asking and taking survey of who will need a hotspot. We're asking that students during this time, all they need are really writing utensils, any notebooks where they could take notes, and then anything else, we, the campus, are going to provide you when you come to pick up those supplies. And we're currently in preparation of that. We plan for to have like a drive-through of when you will come and pick up all the materials that you and your child will need for this virtual instruction. Now here at Dominguez, all 5th and 6th graders will be using Google Classroom. That will be our learning management system. So when you drive by, you will get your child's Google email and their password. And once they log in, their teacher will have set up their classes for them, like their reading class, their math class, their science, and their social studies. This will be the platform. This is where they will complete their assignments, turn in their assignments, get their grades for their assignments. This will allow them to communicate with teachers. The great thing about Google Classroom that we love is that it does have a parent guardian feature. So we will be entering all parents' emails on there, and it'll allow you to track if your child has submitted, if they submitted it late, if there's something missing. So you will also be able to progress monitor via Google Classroom what your child has been turning in. And we will have technical support. Obviously, you know, with technology, sometimes things don't work like they're envisioned to work. So at all points, you will be able to contact, of course, us here at the school, but we also will have somebody from the technology department, who for us is going to be Mr. Bettis, who will help all parents and students troubleshoot any technical aspects or things that are not working. So we've outlined some different roles depending on, you know, what hat you wear. So for students, we need them to be prepared, obviously, by knowing what their username and password is. We will give all that to you, parents and students. That way, that will be how they'll access everything. Obviously, we're going to be requiring them to communicate with their teacher through Google Classroom. We will also have Zoom as an option, but there's another program on Google, that's Google Meet, that essentially does the same thing as Zoom. So your child, for that synchronous instruction, will be using either of those platforms to connect live with their teacher and their classmates. Obviously, we will have a schedule of when things need to be turned in, either on a daily basis or every other day. And, you know, for the student, we really need them to be logging in daily and completing that on a daily basis. This is not at all anything like it was in the spring. You know, in the spring, this kind of caught us all off guard, and we were not able to have daily interaction with our students. We didn't have devices. We went the paper packet route. It is not like that at all. This is very structured, scheduled. We're trying to mimic as much as we can what the day really looks like on campus, making sure it looks like that at home, and having schedules and routines for your students to be able to have the same time every day that'll be math, the same time every day that'll be reading, and etc. And making sure they have these assignments. For families, obviously we are asking that you let us know if you have the device in the hotspot. If not, we will get that for you. That's a district responsibility. Communication is going to be key. So making sure that you are on the parent guardian, and that you're checking that, or that you are logged into our school messenger. We send text messages to communicate with parents. So just that open communication with the district, and also once you know who the teachers are, with the teachers. That's going to be key to making sure that everybody understands what's going on and that students are successful. The teachers have already prepared and are currently right now working to make sure that everything is ready to go for the first 4 weeks. They're working with their departments. They've turned, most of the lessons, which were traditionally face-to-face, they've now been transformed into virtual lessons. They will be available to you every single day, not only during the time that they're teaching your child, but they'll have a daily conference where you can schedule meetings with them. And then they will have times before and after school as well to be available. And we expect them to be communicating with all of our parents and helping whenever there is an issue. And then at the district, obviously our role is making sure that we're providing resources to students that do not have access to that, and that especially in technology, we've purchased a lot of technology to make sure that this is going to work for all of our students and that it's equitable. And then we are writing the curriculum, reviewing it, making sure that it's up to par with what normally happens in the classroom, that you'll have that same experience virtually. And so those are the 4 major components there. And I will now be going through 5th grade. So you will be receiving this. This only applies to our 5th grade students. Again, anything that you see in maroon is going to be synchronous, meaning your child will have to be logged on, the teacher will be there, the classmates will be there. So for example, we are expecting all of our 5th graders to be logged in at 8. Right at 8, the teacher is going to check in, make sure to log in all of our students either on Zoom or Google Meet. And so there's 15 minutes where the teacher will ensure that they're there. She's probably going to be making messages to parents and students that are missing, because this is when she'll check attendance. As soon as it's 8:15 to 9:15, this is going to be the language arts and reading time for all of our students. So same thing, the teacher will provide the instruction live. Students might break out in small groups live. They'll have the ability to talk and then work on their assignment. At 9:15, students will log off, and now it will become their PE time. PE time is in this gold color. Anything in gold is asynchronous, meaning it is not live and self-paced. So at this time, they will have a PE class on Google Classroom. They'll open it, and the coach has prepared daily lessons, but they're pre-recorded. So they'll be watching our coach, but they are not necessarily talking to our coach. So our coach will go through, talk about what's going to be their exercise, what's their assignment for that day, and then students will work on that self-paced. Once it's 10 o'clock, we expect students to log back in. From 10 to 11, it'll be their math time. Again, the teacher's live, the student is live, the classmates are live. All of that work will happen for math. They continue, and an hour later from 11 to 12, now it's science. So they're still with the teacher, but now they're working on science. That's live. Once 12 o'clock happens, everybody logs off, and now it's lunch and recess. And so that things that are in gray here are done at your own. Students can do that on their own with their family at home. So it's lunch, students get that little bit of break, they can get something to eat. Obviously, in a school setting, we would be taking them out to the playground, but whatever works for your child, you know, they need a little break or they just need to calm down, lay down, that's fine. That'll be their time. From 12:45 to 1:15, your child will log back on, but this is asynchronous. They'll see a social studies class. It'll be self-paced. They'll have a pre-recorded lesson or a video, and then they'll complete that assignment. Once it's 1:15, so this is the afternoon portion, this is where instruction is going to become differentiated for your student. So some students will log on with a teacher if they need remediation, or if they need dyslexia, this is where this will happen, or if they are in the GT program and they need to be working on their independent project. This afternoon part for 5th grade is where that happens. So from 1:15 to 2:15, if the teacher needs them for any form of extra intervention, tutoring, dyslexia, anything like this, your child will log on with the teacher. At this point, it's not going to be all 22 students. It's probably a smaller group of students, and it will probably vary. So once school starts, your teacher will communicate with you as the parent and the student which day they are to log in. Are they doing it every day, or what assignment they are to be working on? This is also flexible. So maybe on Monday, I understood what the lesson was for reading, so my teacher doesn't need to provide extra support. But maybe Tuesday, my teacher realized that I didn't really understand, so Tuesday I will do this live small group instruction with my teacher. So this is where that flexibility comes in. Also, there will be independent activities for our students to complete during this time, like for example, logging on, taking an AR test, getting on Epic, just different things that the teacher will provide. Then once it's 2:15 to 3:15, now we move to math. So same kind of instance, who needs math, more support, small group, one-on-one, any intervention, who needs to work on enrichment for math. At 3:15, the day is done for students. We are asking that at 3:30, that will be our final attendance check for students. So for example, in the morning when the teacher took attendance, if your child was not live for whatever reason, they will be marked absent. However, there is a second attendance check at 3:30, and so the state is allowing us, if we can prove on Google Classroom that the assignment for that day was done, then your child can be counted present. So if, for example, maybe in the morning they were sick, they were at a doctor's office and they weren't able to be live, but by the afternoon they managed to get those assignments done for math, for science, and for English language arts, then the teacher's going to do that final check here and then report the final attendance for the day. From 3:15 to 4, this is another time that the teacher will be available for either parents, or even maybe if somebody needs additional one-on-one help, the teacher is available. So this is the 5th grade schedule. That's what we're planning. And that again only applies to our 5th grade students for the time that we are virtual. Does anybody have any questions about the 5th grade schedule before we move to 6th? And keep in mind that you're muted, so if you're gonna ask a question, please unmute yourself. Okay, so I will move to 6th grade. Now, 6th grade is different. So if you know, 6th grade is the period where we have our students that go to multiple classes. So from 6th grade on up, the schedule is not identical. So in 5th grade, every 5th grade student is going to have math at the same time. Every 5th grade student is going to have reading at the same time. That will not apply to 6th grade because our students have different schedules based on things that they chose, like maybe their elective, or they chose PE versus pre-athletics. So 6th grade students will vary. What will be the same is that all core areas, which in this case is reading, math, science, and social studies, all of those are going to be synchronous live. So we expect that all of the students log in, are with the teacher, are with their classmates all together. The things that will be asynchronous are going to be either PE or pre-athletics, and any elective that they chose will be asynchronous. So those will be self-paced. They will not see the teacher live during that time. That is distinguishing 6th grade. Now, because our 6th grade schedule is made up of 9 periods, so if you look here, our first period is from 7:55 to 8:45. Then you've got 2nd period, 3rd period, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. There are 9 periods. This is going to vary. So if you're the parent of a 6th grade child, you will follow the time that they have their core area. So here we just did an example. Let's say my schedule has me in 1st and 2nd period English language arts. Well, then I'm live 1st and 2nd period. Then at my 3rd period of science, I'm still live. Then my 4th period of social studies, I'm still live. But 5th period, I happen to have athletics. This is where I'm not live and it's self-paced. The only thing that's the same for all of our 6th graders will be lunch. All 6th graders will have lunch from 12:13 to 1:13. But then after lunch, I have math 7th and 8th. So I'm going to be live during that time. And then my 9th period happens to be my elective, so I'm not live. Those times apply to me only, because Miss Lamas, who might be another 6th grade student, her schedule might not be exactly like mine. So her live times are different than my live times. So once you receive your own individual child's schedule and you identify which periods are those 4 areas, and we wrote those here, English language arts, math, science, and social studies, that's when your child will be live. So you might have, in the event you have 2 6th grade children, they're not necessarily going to be live the exact same time because their schedule might be different. And so that is going to vary, and it's based, again, individually on every child's schedule. But regardless, everybody we know will have the 4 core areas of live instruction. Some kids will have athletics, some kids will have PE. That's another thing that's different. Regardless, those are both asynchronous, non-live. And then electives vary in 6th grade. Some kids are in art, some kids are in band, choir, or we have some children that are not in an elective and they're in an intervention class. If they're in an intervention class, then that will be live instruction, because we know that they need extra support to make sure to fill in those gaps that they have. So again, you won't know exact times if you're a 6th grade parent until you pick up that schedule. Any questions on our 6th grade schedule? Okay, and then I will briefly go over additional support roles. So obviously we know that the teacher is going to be live with your child. Now we have so many more people on the campus that work here. It's not just teachers. So other things that you can expect. Our counselor who is here live, she will be hosting classes for counseling during all virtual time for all of our 5th grade and 6th grade students. So they will also have a Google Classroom for counseling, where she will be doing lessons with them on a weekly basis, touching base with students. That'll be whole group. Of course, she will still be available to support any students that need additional counseling, either in a small group or an individual basis. So she'll be working on those things. That will be her role. Because we are elementary, she does follow a certain curriculum on here that kind of guides what the lessons are. We have a sample here of a counseling schedule that has not been finalized, so I'm not going to go into much detail. I just want to leave you rest assured that your child will still get whole group counseling as a class. The teacher, we already know she's providing direct instruction. Now, as for our paraprofessionals, we will be using all of our paraprofessional teacher assistants to assist with instruction. So most of our paraprofessionals provide inclusionary support to all of our students that are in the special education program. So if you ever happen to notice that not only is there a teacher, there's another teacher together in the classroom, that's why that's happening. That paraprofessional is providing that additional support to some of the students that are in that class. Or in essence, they serve as a co-teacher. You might even see our special education teachers together with our gen ed teachers, and they're providing that support for their students. They would also have little breakout sessions where they work not only with special education students, but with general education students. And so that grouping will vary. So you will most likely see more than just a teacher during that live instruction. And that's how we will be using all of our paraprofessionals. The librarian, right now, our plan is obviously during virtual, kids will not be checking out hard copy of books, but we do have an online system of ebooks that they can check out. And so she'll be assisting all of our teachers. She'll probably be also co-teaching in the reading classes and delivering library lessons through that role. So again, another time you might see that the librarian and the reading teacher are together delivering some instruction. As for Ms. Lamas, who is our assistant principal, she will be checking in on all of our teachers and all of our students, meeting with teachers on a weekly basis. She will be contacting parents if there are anything that is occurring. Right now, she will be overseeing all of our 6th grade students and staff. So if your child is in 6th grade, you will probably hear from Ms. Lamas before you hear from me. I will be overseeing 5th grade. That's just how we divided it for virtual. So that is going to be our primary focus. But we will be calling. We will also be conducting walkthroughs. So you might see us in these classrooms live as well, where we are, watching what's happening, then giving feedback to our teachers about how we can improve that instruction. And then finally, we will still be using Skyward. So you as a parent still have access to Skyward. Once our teachers have all the grades on Google Classroom, those grades will transfer to Skyward. That's what gets inputted for the report card. You will be able to see the progress report card on Skyward and any final report cards on Skyward as well. So that continues to be where you can view that. And then as for attendance, I touched on that. Obviously, there's a morning attendance time that we will take. That's going to be the first check. But at the end of the day at 3:30, we will do the second and final attendance check for any of students that were not live, and you actually will be counted present if you have turned in all of your assignments for the day. So we have that kind of criteria there. That really will conclude instruction. As for grading policy, that has remained the same. So the policies that still applied will still be taking 10 grades per 6 weeks, things like that. Obviously, the grading policy is the same for all of our students. And then any other support service, like I know I touched on special education, but bilingual, migrant, everybody will have a role in supporting students that we know have documentation of that extra support. That does conclude instruction. Does anybody have any questions about instruction? Again, please unmute yourself if you have a question. We'll do a couple minutes for instruction before we jump into safety. If you now need a device, please call us. At this point, we have called all of our 500 students at Dominguez for devices. So if you told us no and now need one, please call us so we can update that. We are currently preparing that and we want to make sure that you're ready. So just please call us to notify us of that. Okay, so we will go ahead and jump over. I'm gonna let Ms. Lamas now touch on safety.
Okay, parents, we do have our practices to prevent the virus from entering our school. Once again, this is a draft and we're still adding information to our prevention at this time. Okay, protocol for staff entering the school. Here at Dominguez, we are going to require that all staff be screened for the COVID-19 symptoms before coming into the campus each day. Additional employees will be screened when reporting to work. Employees must enter through one of the campus designated symptom checkpoints for daily screenings. And at this point, we have designated the cafeteria entrance as for all employees to be screened before walking into the building. Campus principal and department supervisors will develop a plan for screening custodians, child nutrition staff that report to work each day, and a daily log and temperature and symptoms check will also be kept for all employees. If an employee has a temperature of 100 degrees or higher or other indicators as listed on the questionnaire, they will be sent home immediately and instructed to promptly contact their doctor. The La Feria ISD administration will follow up with the employee who are sent home and follow up on guidelines on how to return to work. Okay, so not only will students be screened, all staff members will be screened upon entering the building, and they also must fill out a questionnaire and answering all the questions that are on the questionnaire. This is the protocol for students entering the school. All students will be required to self-screen or have their parents or guardians screen them for signs of symptoms of COVID. Students at home COVID-19 screening chart, and I will go through this slowly. These are the questions that parents must be able to respond to. Number one, has my child taken any fever or pain reducing medications such as Tylenol, Motrin, ibuprofen in the last 24 hours? Does my child have any of these signs or symptoms? Fever of 100 degrees or greater, chills, cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle or body aches, headaches, new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion or running nose, nausea or vomiting, or diarrhea. Has my child been in close contact within 6 feet for 15 minutes while not wearing a mask to anyone with a lab-confirmed COVID-19 result in the past 14 days? Has my child has a positive lab-confirmed COVID-19 result in the past 14 days? If you have a yes response to any of these questions, your child should stay home and you should contact the school nurse. Students will not be able to report to school or entry of any district building or facility until cleared by a school nurse. Now, upon reentry, any student who themselves either has a lab-confirmed COVID-19 result or experience symptoms of COVID-19 must have over-the-phone screening done by school nurse to determine if it is safe for the child to return back to the campus for reentry. In the case of a student with a lab-confirmed COVID-19 result, at least 14 days have passed since symptoms first appeared. At least 3 days, which is 72 hours, have passed since recovery with resolution of fever without the use of fever-reducing medication. The student has improvement in symptoms, and the student must obtain a medical professional's note clearing the student to return to school. Number two, in the case of a student who has symptoms of COVID-19 who is not evaluated by a medical professional or tested for COVID-19, student is assumed to have COVID-19. At least 14 days have passed since symptoms first appeared. At least 3 days have passed since recovery with resolution of fever without the use of medication, and the student has improvement in symptoms. If the student has symptoms of COVID-19 and wants to return to school before completing the above conditions, the student must either obtain a professional note clearing the student to return back to school, receive 2 separate confirmations at least 24 hours apart that they are lab negative for COVID-19 at an approved COVID-19 testing location. We did also provide a website for testing locations there if you want to jot that down. Our campus nurse is Ms. Maribel Ariano, and she will be the point of contact if you have any questions regarding the prevention of COVID-19 and the screenings and any of the questions that you may have. For students that are dropped off, the staff will meet students at the drop-off area to monitor social distancing from the pickup lane. Students will be dropped off at a designated area designed to allow for social distancing. Parents of elementary students will be required to assist their child in getting out of the vehicles. We will no longer be able to get near the vehicle or assist students in trying to get off the vehicle. A staff member will be available at the identified drop-off and pickup location to verify that the student or the parent has completed the self-check form while the student is in the vehicle. The student temperature will be checked upon exiting the car. Now, once again, let me just make this clear that the parents do have to self-check their child before getting off the vehicle. We will have a list, once again, of all the questions that you must follow in order to self-check the students before they're allowed to exit the vehicle. For students that walk to school, each student, again, will be assigned to a designated entrance, which will be our cafeteria, to reduce traffic and interaction between other students. A staff member will be available at the identified location to complete the self-check form with the student and take the student's temperature. For students who ride the bus, staff will meet students at the bus area to monitor social distancing. Students will report to designated areas designed to allow for social distancing. And once again, if the students are riding the bus, we will have staff members over there as well, taking the students' temperature and make sure that they're following social distancing as they're exiting the bus. Students will have designated seats on buses. Seats will be assigned to keep family members together to reduce and minimize passing each other any viruses if they should have any. Temperatures will be taken when students enter the bus, and if a student has a temperature, he will not be allowed to attend in person to school. Students will use hand sanitizer provided in the bus upon entering and exiting the bus. The driver and the monitor will dismiss students one at a time. Students must remain in their seat until they are called. Screenings will be conducted when students are picked up each morning. The questions from CDC on the symptoms will also be posted on the bus. Okay. Protocol for visitors entering our school, excluding parental drop-off and pickup as discussed above. Before visitors are allowed onto campus, Noemi Dominguez Elementary will screen all visitors to determine if the visitors have COVID-19 symptoms, as listed above in the document, or lab confirmed, and if so, they must remain off campus until they meet the criteria for reentry as noted below. We will restrict visits in the schools to only those essential to school operations. When possible, parent contacts would be made via telephone or teleconferencing through Zoom. Visitors to campuses will be limited to emergency situations only. Upon entering, visitors will be screened and will remain in the front lobby area at Noemi Dominguez. Once again, these visitors will be subject to answering those questions just as staff members and employees for the campus. At no time will visitors be permitted to interact with students. Visitors will remain in the front area at each campus. All parents with scheduled Zoom or phone calls, unless otherwise not avoidable. If a face-to-face meeting is needed, parents will remain in the front office area. Observation of classrooms will not be permitted. For the 2020-21 school year, breakfast lunch will not be allowed to be dropped off for students.
All right, and so I will continue. Thank you, Ms. Lamas, for that with this document. The next part is what happens if we think there is somebody with COVID on the campus. So we want to talk about what that procedure will look like. If it's a student or staff and they immediately either self-report after passing, right, because they would have had to have passed the screening and the temperature in the morning, then maybe they start to feel sick as the day progresses. That student or staff member will immediately be separated from everyone, and they will move to our COVID isolation area, which will be housed at the nurse's office. And so then Ms. Arellano from there will be the only point of contact with that student or staff member, immediately notifying the parent, or if it's a staff, immediately dismissing the staff to go home. At that point, our personnel for cleaning will clean all areas that we have identified that person to have been in. So we'll backtrack, where did that student, where were they, what classroom, and then as soon as that happens, a file will start on that student or staff member. And then Miss Arellano, this is why she's the COVID contact. She is now the only one who then will clear this student or staff member upon when they are cleared to return to the campus. And so it outlines, you know, what their quarantine period will be, that we will actually need a note from a doctor signing off that they are allowed to come. And so she will be calling and checking in with that parent staff member throughout the time, but at no point will they be allowed to return until they have the final clearance from her. And of course, the district is requiring her to collect a lot of documentation, especially medical clearance from a health professional that signs off that that student or staff is able to come back. And so that can vary, you know, just depending on an individual child. So we can't say it will only be 14 days or it'll only be so-and-so, because it'll vary until we get that person, child or student, cleared by that doctor. And so that is going to be our response. Now, okay, I will continue to things that we are putting in place. If you are not on, if you have not muted yourself, please make sure that's you are on mute. So mitigate are things that our team here at Dominguez has already identified and procedures that we have changed to avoid having the possibility of somebody with COVID entering or highly spreading this virus to the rest of the students and staff on this campus. So the first thing is sanitation stations. That's something that will be new. These will be located at two different areas during, here at the campus. One is going to be in the cafeteria main door. That's immediately as we clear a student from the pickup area or a walker to come in, they will have to use the sanitation station to disinfect their hands. And then one will be in the bus area as well. So we'll have two extra precautionary stations where they will actually be hand washing with soap and everything immediately upon entering the building. The second thing that will be new that Ms. Thomas touched on are the temperature checks. That is going to be a requirement for all staff and student. Anybody over 100 will be automatically sent home. Now, we are planning for what if that does happen for our students. And if for some reason there is somebody over 100, we are implementing a second temperature check that will be done by the nurse. So if somebody outside finds a student, we will immediately call the nurse. The nurse will do a rechecking of temperature, and then the nurse will make the final determination if that child is to go home or not. Parent will be contacted. Something again that's different is face masks. We will be requiring all student, staff, visitors to wear a face mask.
Okay. What do you say?
We will be providing a cloth face mask to all of our staff, students, on top of also providing a face shield. Now, the face shield is optional, but the face mask is going to be required for every single person here at Dominguez. We are going to be making sure that we have at least 6 feet from one another. However, that's when feasible. You know, there will be times where that might not be possible, and I'll go into more detail in a little bit. And then requiring our students to use hand sanitizer and washing their hands is a new procedure that will happen not only before they enter the building, but also throughout the day. And then we will also, you know, and kids are kids, and we know that we all have to be responsible for teaching them that things that normally were okay, like shaking hands, touching each other, giving someone a hug, that were procedures that, you know, nobody really ever said kids couldn't do, now are going to be things they can't do. So we definitely need parents' assistance in helping to instill that and, you know, let kids know ahead of time. Something like that now the staff will be addressing that with students if we're seeing that, because we obviously want everybody to keep to themselves as much as possible. Now, we also understand there might be an instance where a student cannot wear a mask. So here are our guidelines. If for some health reason a student cannot wear a mask, they will be required to wear the face shield. So the face shield does not necessarily constrict the nose and mouth. It's a plastic that is over your face. Now that, according to the CDC, that will only apply to students in this scenario. Children that are younger than 2, well, that won't apply to anybody here at Dominguez because our kids are 10 and older. Anybody who has trouble breathing, anybody who is unconscious, incapacitated, or cannot actually remove the cloth mask without somebody else's help, or people that have asthma, COPD, or heart conditions that might cause somebody to have trouble breathing. However, we know that that varies depending on the severity, and then all those determinations will be made on a case by case. But again, if that happens to apply, the student has to wear the face shield, and we will be providing a face shield to all students, but this child could also provide their own face shield if the one that is provided by the district is not one that they want to use. Now, as what will be allowed to be brought from home, again, we are going to be really strict that the only thing that can come are backpacks with instructional materials. Nothing else can come. We're trying to limit the amounts of things that students would be carrying or that would be housed in classrooms, so that we don't have as much stuff. Now, as far as classrooms, something that is new, our 5th grade students and teachers are now self-contained. So when some of you guys came to teacher request, we did have our 5th grade teachers listed as teams of 3. For the safety of all of our students and our teachers, we have changed that to be 1 teacher so that the students are never rotating. They're not in the hall. They're not switching classrooms. And so you will be assigned 1 teacher only for 5th grade. That will be the teacher for all subjects. There will be no rotation. Students will stay in that classroom all day long with that teacher. For 6th grade, we could not move our teachers to be self-contained, because in 6th grade, not all of our teachers have the self-contained certification. But something that is new that we've done in 6th grade is that we actually teamed our students. So in the past, students could have any teacher for math, any teacher for science, social studies, so all of the groups were mixed at all times. We are not doing that anymore. Our teachers are in a team. So for example, Miss Zambrano is the math teacher that's in a team with Miss Aranda. So Miss Zambrano and Miss Aranda have the exact same math and reading students. They do not go at all to any other math or reading teacher. And they have the exact same science and social studies teacher. So all of our teachers were placed in teams of 4. And on top of that, we have now moved our 6th graders to where they traditionally were in 1 hallway. We have moved these teams to 2 different hallways. So there will be 6 6th grade teachers in 1 hall, 6 in another hall. And that way during passing period, students from a whole nother team of teachers have no business or have no reason to walk to the other hall to intermix with the other students. So we've already separated our students in that way. There will be less numbers of students in the hall for that reason as well, and we're already controlling that mixing. The only time that we might have students that are not necessarily in those teams will be for band, if they've chosen band. We do have kids in different band sections depending on their instrument, because we did honor their instrument request. So any elective like band, art, and choir, you will have intermixing. But other than that, based on core subjects, the students will remain the same. On top of that, all of our teachers have already removed furniture. So they've been really great about, they came in the summer, we took out everything that is extra, bookshelves, couches, anything that we know we don't want students to be using has been removed. And all that's basically left in the classrooms are 20 desks, and a teacher area. Many of our teachers even remove their own teacher desks just to make more space. Now, at this point right now, all of our desks are approximately 3 feet apart. We could not honor the desks at 6 feet apart because that would mean that there would only be 10 desks in a classroom. And so we know that we are not going to have 10 students in a class. We are looking at, in 5th grade, having 22 students in a class. In 6th grade, our numbers look like 24, 25 students. Now, please, however, keep in mind that if not all those students return face-to-face, then of course our classes will be smaller. But right now, we master scheduled everybody into a class as if they're returning. Now, the less number of students that come face-to-face, the less number of students that will actually be in the room. And let's say if one teacher ends up with only 5 face-to-face students, well then, yes, there might be 20 desks in there, but I'm gonna space out my 5 students to make sure they're 6 feet apart. But again, that's gonna be dependent on how many students actually show up to school. On top of that, all of our classroom doors have an emergency exit door, which traditionally was only used in the case of a true fire. The procedure will be that all teachers will open this exit door during every period to allow for fresh air to come in and just help with that ventilation. Additionally, there will be no sharing of supplies at all whatsoever. So students will be responsible for their own supplies. They will carry them in their backpack. They will take them out when they need them. They will put them back. As for the hallway, I've already touched on what happens in 6th grade. We've split the students, so there's not going to be as many students in every hallway. On top of that, we are going to be putting signage all over the hallway as far as marking exactly where 6 feet is so that students can be aware of that. We will have extra people in the hall monitoring anytime there's passing period to make sure that we are helping and encouraging our students to stay within that 6 foot distance. Also, another idea in 6th grade that we've thrown around is that one side of the hallway will dismiss students first, and then the other side of the hallway will probably dismiss students through the outside of the building, so that way we don't have a lot of students. But again, we won't know that, parents, until we know how many students we are talking about are actually going to be coming to face-to-face. If we have a lot of students, you know, we'll have to get more extreme as to what our procedures are. But if we only have very few students that are coming face-to-face, then it's a lot easier for us to ensure that they're 6 feet apart and that we can maintain that in the hallway. As for PE and recess, PE is going to take place outside as much as possible when the weather is great. So we will try to limit the use of the gym. The playground is going to be taped off. Nobody will be using the playground at all whatsoever. As far as athletics, there will be no changing. We will not be issuing clothes to students. They will not be dressing out. They will not be using the locker room. That'll be different as well for our kids in athletics. And then as far as recess, we will no longer be conducting grade level recess. That's something that, you know, Ms. Thomas, myself, and the paras, we would take all the students out during lunch. That will not happen. Each teacher will be responsible individually for recess, and the teacher will have the option to either do an indoor recess or an outdoor recess. And even then, recess is not going to consist of the playground because that will be closed off. There will be no basketballs or any kind of sharing. If anything, it'll be, I'm going to take my students out in this designated area. I'll give them 15 minutes to walk. It'll be that type of recess to make sure that we're not grouping. They will not go out with any other class, so they're not going to see the rest of their 5th or 6th grade friends because, again, we don't need a lot of students outside. So that'll be different for recess. The library, I touched on this, it's going to be shut down. Kids will not be coming to the library at all. The librarian will actually travel to students' classrooms. Something else that will be different is lunch and breakfast. This will all happen in the classroom. We will no longer use the cafeteria at all. Students will eat in their class with only the students in their class. They will receive 30 minutes for lunch. And so our nutrition department and our custodial department are going to coordinate more frequent cleaning, because now we know that the rooms are going to be used also for eating and not just learning. We are going to ensure that teachers, the great thing is that each of our teachers' classrooms actually have a sink. So teachers will be required to make sure that each student washes their hand in their classroom sink before picking up their grab and go breakfast or lunch, and then immediately after. And of course, there will be no parent that will be allowed to come eat breakfast or lunch with their child. That's suspended until further notice. Another change is the water fountain. Students will no longer have access to water fountains. So all students will have to bring a water bottle. If not, there will be no way for them to access any water all day at the campus. They are in the process of all being refilled to be water bottle fill stations. So with a child brings their bottle, they'll be able to place it, it'll be filled, and then we will designate what class can go do that. And then we will designate a custodian to make sure that that gets sanitized very frequently as students are going through there. We have also installed hand sanitizers everywhere next to a water fill station. So right before they're going to fill their water bottle, they'll have to get some hand sanitizer, and then they can go ahead and do that. As for sanitation, it will be a requirement of all teachers to teach and watch and supervise students washing their hands for at least 20 seconds. That is guidance that's coming from the CDC. So upon returning to face-to-face day one, that's something that our teachers will teach students. Our nurse will train our staff on what's the protocol for that, and then teachers will be required to do that twice a day with their students. Also, for all of our sixth graders, since we know they are going to be moving classes, they will be required to use hand sanitizer upon entering all the new classrooms. Every single classroom has hand sanitizer. They've all been changed to make sure they're the proper percentage that really does kill the germs. And so we'll be requiring that for our students. As far as doors, the teacher will now make sure that the door is open and propped open so that students aren't constantly touching those doors when we're changing classes. Common areas, the only really common area that we will be using are going to be the hallways and any things that are high touch that will be constantly cleaned. We have signs, they're already going up in every single classroom in the hallway, encouraging students to social distance, wear their face mask properly, things like that. And then for sixth grade, because we know that students are going to be changing, our teachers, support staff, and custodians will be required to wipe down the desks anytime there's kids changing. So there will be a schedule for how these three people will help. So at times we will have the teachers that will have to wipe down before the new students come. And of course, I've touched on how they'll have immediately upon entering, the kids will need hand sanitizer. As for the restrooms, they will be sanitized 3 times per day. And as far as sanitized, each campus will be receiving a new machine. It's like a fogger. And so the custodians will be able to go in there, fog that restroom. It takes 90 seconds for it to dry. And then it means that all the germs in there got killed. So that will happen 3 times throughout the day. Of course, on top of them going in and cleaning everything. And then over these next few weeks, as we get ready for face-to-face, they're installing touchless faucets, touchless paper towel dispensers, touchless soaps dispensers, dividers between the sinks, and then automatic toilet and urinals will also be installed. And then our final protocol is for the nurse's office. Students will continue to come to the nurse if we administer medication on campus for those students that have that. However, the nurse's office will look different. There will be an area for sick patients and not sick patients. That way the students aren't together. And so the area for sick patients is actually designated the COVID-19 holding area. So that's where students will go that are experiencing any of those symptoms. And then of course, all the nurses are constantly getting training on how, what are the protocols and procedures that they need to make sure that they're following for that. And that concludes our efforts that are specific here at Dominguez for mitigation again, this is a draft. It will not be finalized until we have concluded all these meetings, which is why we wanted to go ahead and, you know, meet and touch base with parents on that. So if you put your questions in the chat and they haven't been answered, or if you have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing, and then we will allocate the next 10 minutes for questions before our meeting ends. If you have a question, again, please make sure you unmute yourself so that you can ask that question. What is the protocol if a student has COVID but does not show symptoms? So we are asking all of parents help with that. I mean, if you know that your child has COVID, please do not send your child to school, even if your child doesn't have any of these symptoms. We can screen them for these symptoms, but if your child doesn't have a fever and we're not aware that they have COVID, then we're not going to know that. So this is where it really is all the health of our staff and our students really rests and relies on what everybody is doing at home. And so, you know, is everybody also limiting their interactions? If you know that you think your child might have COVID, then we're asking that you please do not send them at all whatsoever, and that you contact us. We will be able to screen and catch all the students, hopefully, that are symptomatic. But if they're asymptomatic and we don't know that and you haven't made us aware, then unfortunately we'll be in a situation where that child can potentially spread that to other people. So parents, we really do need your help with that. As for band, we have already called all of our students that had selected band since last week, and they've chosen their instrument. So I know that there were a couple of, I want to say maybe like 3 students that we were missing. So if that applies to you, please call us. We have been trying to contact you for that.
Miss, con permiso, una pregunta. Yo sé que hay mucha información y hay muchas preguntas por completar, pero ya que la clase y toda la información que han dado en inglés, sé que habemos muchos papás que necesitamos la información en español. ¿Se dará otra junta para poder llenarnos y empaparnos de toda esta información que se ha dado hoy?
Se puede quedar después de esta junta y le podemos dar la información en español, y si hay cualquier persona que necesita eso, lo podemos hacer, pero ahorita nada más teníamos estas 2 juntas, pero nosotros nos podemos quedar si quiere tiempo para darle la información en español.
Perfecto, ok, gracias.
Any other question? Alrighty, well, if there's no other questions, we want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. If you'd like to stay on, or you have a question that you'd like, Ms. Lamas and I, the nurse and the counselor, will be staying on. We will do the translation in Spanish, but if you feel comfortable and at this point you can go ahead and exit our meeting. Again, I thank you so much for joining us. And please just stay up to date on our website and our La Feria ISD social media page. Again, I can't stress enough how important it is that these things are constantly changing, and so all up-to-minute information is going to be dispersed that way. So we will also be posting on there when is the day that you can come pick up schedules, devices, all of that. So we're currently doing final preparations for that, and that information will be shared on there as well. So thank you so much. Go ahead and exit the meeting, and then we'll be staying on for any final questions and then for Spanish translation. Any final questions before we move to Spanish?
Perfecto.
Ok, entonces vamos a empezar en español. Voy a empezar por hablar de cómo vamos a dar la instrucción para los niños. Desde hoy sabemos que las primeras 4 semanas van a ser por la computadora. Entonces, ¿por qué van a ser por la computadora? Queríamos explicar cómo va a trabajar este plan. Hay una cosa que todos los padres tienen que entender, es que hay 2 tipos de instrucción que van a pasar en la computadora y la palabra en inglés se llama synchronous. Cuando es synchronous, significa que vamos a requerir que los niños estén presentes con la maestra y con los otros niños en ese tiempo. Así como nosotros ahorita todos estamos presentes en esta junta, así va a haber periodos en el día donde los niños tienen que estar presentes. Luego va a haber periodos en el día donde es asynchronous, que significa que la maestra o el maestro no va a estar presente, ya le ha dado una tarea al niño, un video, o a lo mejor se grabó él mismo dando las instrucciones y el niño o la niña va a tener que completar el trabajo solo. Entonces, esas 2 van a ser las maneras con lo que va a ser la instrucción en las 4 semanas. Señora Vivian, ¿va a ser en grado 5º o 6º la estudiante?
Entra a 5º grado.
Ok, entonces le voy a explicar específicamente 5º grado. Entonces, en 5º grado, aquí es el tiempo para su estudiante. Todo lo que está en este color marrón, parece que se dice así, es el horario en que su niño o niña tiene que estar presente con la maestra, así como estamos nosotros. Entonces, a las 8 de la mañana va a tener que estar presente. La maestra va a tomar y checar quién está, quién no está, y luego la primera hora va a ser para lectura. Después de eso, el tiempo que ve en anaranjado es donde su niño o niña va a hacer esa clase sin un maestro presente, pero va a tener, o sea, el video de la maestra o un video que va a ver y luego ya va a poder hacer su tarea. Eso va a ser para educación física, que va a ser de 9:15 a 10. Su hijo o hija va a ver el video, luego va a hacer ese ejercicio y ya así se va a terminar esa clase. O a las 10 se va a tener que poner otra vez y va a ser en vivo con la maestra 1 hora de matemáticas y luego de 11 a 12 1 hora de ciencias en vivo. Luego va a ser las 12, se va a ir de la computadora y es tiempo para comer y hacer recreo en la casa. Cuando regrese a las 12:45 es estudios sociales, nada más es un video que va a ver y lo va a hacer su tarea, no va a ser en vivo. Luego se viene la 1:15 y aquí otra vez va a estar en vivo, pero aquí es donde va a haber menos estudiantes en su clase, porque lo que pasa en la tarde de 1:15 a 3:15 es que aquí la maestra va a estar haciendo 2 cosas. Teniendo clases en vivo con los niños que necesitan un poco más ayuda o que no entendieron esa materia. Y luego los niños que sí van a tener otra tarea un poquito en un nivel más avanzado para que sigan aprendiendo. Aquí puede haber días que la maestra diga, ok, su hijo va a estar conmigo en vivo nada más el lunes y el miércoles. Y el martes, jueves y viernes va a trabajar en esa tarea sola. Aquí es donde la maestra le va a decir ya más específicamente cuáles son los días para su hijo o hija. Y luego de 3:15 a 4, a las 3:15 se acaba el día para su estudiante en grado 5 y de 3:15 a 4, si tiene preguntas, le puede hablar a la maestra. A las 3:30, la maestra va a checar una vez más. Si su hijo no estuvo en vivo a las 8, cuando la maestra checó, va a checar a las 3:30. Y si no estuvo, pero ve que entregó su tarea de lectura, de matemáticas, de ciencias, de PE, de estudios sociales, luego como quiera la puede marcar presente. Sí entregó todo eso. Entonces, hay dos maneras de cómo marcamos si los niños vienen. Uno, si están en vivo a la hora que decimos, o dos, si completan toda su tarea y tienen que estar completa a las 3:30 de la tarde. ¿Entiende eso?
Sí, Miss, está
Ok.
perfecto. O sea, que
Perfecto.
ese va a ser el check-in a las 8 de la mañana. Si ella
Claro
no
que
es
sí.
check-in a las 8 de la mañana, tiene que haber entregado todo su trabajo.
Claro que sí.
Ok.
Y eso va a ser todos los días, por eso que ahorita estamos diciendo son 20 días, ¿verdad? Porque son 4 semanas. Así va a trabajar. Luego, después de eso, usted tiene una opción, señora. Usted después de esas 4 semanas puede decidir que su hijo o hija va a seguir en la computadora o que en ese entonces puede regresar para la escuela. Entonces, obviamente, cuando ese cambio pase, este schedule va a cambiar, porque pues si vas a venir todo el día, vas a estar aquí hasta las 4. So, el tiempo va a cambiar. Y también si te quedas en la casa, tu tiempo va a cambiar porque la maestra ahora va a tener que hacer las dos cosas. La maestra va a tener que asistir a los niños que están en la casa, pero también a los que están aquí. So, cuando ya nos estemos acercando al día cuando nos vamos a mover, va a haber una nueva schedule. Esta nada más es la schedule para estas 4 semanas que sabemos que todos los niños están en la casa. Y ya cuando nos acerquemos, le dijimos qué va a ser la schedule. Pero por eso también necesitamos saber de todos los padres quién se va a quedar y quién va a venir para saber cómo nos vamos a encargar de poder hacer las dos cosas ahora al mismo tiempo. Entonces, no le tengo que decir de sexto, ¿verdad? Porque no tiene nadie en 6, ¿correcto?
Sí, correcto.
Ok. Carmen, ¿tiene un estudiante en grado 6 o nada más grado 5? Ok, bueno, entonces eso es todo lo de la escuela virtual. Ya hablamos con ustedes, estamos hablando toda la semana porque lo que tenemos, los niños tienen que tener una computadora y tienen que tener acceso al internet para poder hacer eso. Ahora me voy a mover y voy a hablar sobre todas las cosas que se van a hacer en la escuela si su hijo o hija va a regresar a la escuela. Entonces, este es el plan para asegurarnos que tratemos de controlar para que ojalá y nadie de los niños y nadie de las gentes que trabajan aquí se vayan a contagiar del virus. Nuestra enfermera Mesarellano, ella va a ser la persona con quien padres se van a comunicar por cualquier cosa que sea sobre este virus. Si tu niño tiene fiebre y no vino, le hablas a Mesarellano y le dices, no vine porque tengo fiebre, sé que fiebre es un síntoma. Si tu niño tiene COVID, le hablas a Mesarellano. Ella se va a encargar. Ahora, hay cosas que vamos a hacer y que estamos requiriendo que padres hagan para asegurarse de que ojalá y nadie venga que tiene este virus. Hay estas 6 preguntas que cada día antes de mandar tienes que responder no para que tu hijo o hija pueda entrar. La primera es, ¿le has dado a tu hijo o hija Tylenol o cualquier cosa que le quite una fiebre? Tienes que decir no, porque si le has dado, no van a poder venir. Número 2, mi hijo tiene una fiebre de 100 grados o más. No. Está tosiendo, está diciendo que tiene escalofríos, está diciendo que no puede respirar, está diciendo que está muy cansado, que le duele el cuerpo, que tiene un dolor de cabeza, que no puede respirar o no puede probar, o que le duele la garganta, o que se siente un poco congestionado de la nariz, o se ha estado vomitando o náusea o tiene diarrea. Tiene que ser no a todas estas cosas. Aunque ya sabemos que no necesariamente porque tengas una jaqueca tienes COVID, pero como estamos tan precavidos, si eso tiene tu hijo o hija, por favor, nada más déjatelos en la casa y luego checamos. Si mañana no lo tiene, luego puede regresar. Pero no queremos que vaya a tener nada de esto y estar aquí en la escuela. La otra cosa es, puedes asegurar que tu hijo no ha estado en 6 pies de alguien que ha tenido esta enfermedad en los últimos 14 días. Puedes asegurar que tu hijo no tuvo un examen que dice que tiene la enfermedad en los últimos 14 días. Si respondes sí a cualquiera de esas cosas, por favor, no vayas a mandar a tu hijo o a tu hija. Es lo que estamos pidiéndole a todos los padres. Aparte de eso, cuando llegue a la escuela, le vamos a checar la temperatura y te vamos a preguntar esas preguntas y tienes que pasar antes de que decimos, ok, bueno, si ya la puedes dejar o lo puedes dejar. En el evento de que uno de nuestros niños o uno de las personas que trabaja aquí tenga o unos de los síntomas o tenga la enfermedad, aquí están todas las cosas que tienen que hacer para poder regresar. Cuando ya sepamos que tiene este virus, nuestra enfermera mesarellano es la única con que vas a hablar y es la única con que ella te va a decir cuándo puede regresar tu hijo o hija. Ella va a tener que tener una nota donde un doctor firme que ya puede regresar y que no tiene el examen. Puede pasar 14 días, 15 días, 30 días, no sé. Todo depende de cuándo el doctor te dé eso y luego tú lo mandes a Mesarellano lo verifique, luego ya Mesarellano va a decir, ok, pasado mañana puede regresar tu hijo o hija. La misma cosa va a pasar con cualquier empleado aquí. Va a durar, son muchas cosas que tienen que hacer hasta que puedan regresar y aquí están todo eso, pero aquí dice todo, pero es Mesarellano la que te va a decir cuándo y le tienes que dar esa documentación. Aquí está la información de Mesarellano, su número. Aquí estamos diciendo, si lo vas a venir a dejar a tu hijo en el carro, va a ser en el frente, en el bus. Si va a ir en el bus, hasta en el bus van a checar temperatura. Si tu niño va a caminar, también le vamos a checar la temperatura. Y si por alguna razón no pasa una de estas cosas, el niño se va a tener que regresar y no va a poder subirse al bus o no va a poder entrar a la escuela. La misma cosa va a pasar para visitantes. En realidad, ahorita no vamos a dejar que nadie entre, hasta ni padres, nada más en caso de una emergencia, pero el padre no va a poder entrar nada más al lobby y es todo. No puede entrar para aquí y hasta cuando vengas al lobby tienes que traer una máscara, te vamos a checar la temperatura, te vamos a preguntar estas preguntas y luego ya te vamos a dejar ahí en el lobby, pero nadie va a pasar. Si tenemos que tener juntas, las vamos a hacer así en Zoom o te vamos a llamar. Y también este año no vamos a dejar que ni una persona venga a dejar almuerzo o comida a cualquier niño. Eso no se va a permitir para nada. Los niños van a tener que comer la comida de aquí o si no, se tienen que acordar de traerse esa comida desde la mañana ellos solos. Si por alguna razón, ojalá y no, ¿verdad? Pero alguien tenga los síntomas, inmediatamente se va a separar de los otros alumnos, se va a ir a la área en la enfermería, donde es la área solamente para niños con síntomas o con COVID. Se le va a hablar inmediatamente al padre que venga a levantar y inmediatamente vamos a limpiar y escribir una lista de todos los lugares donde estuvo ese niño o esa persona empleada y desinfectarlos inmediatamente. Ahora, si hemos cambiado muchas de las cosas que pasan en la escuela para asegurarnos que ojalá y todos los niños y todos los empleados no tengan que tener ningún síntoma ni se vayan a infectar. Cuando el niño entre a la escuela, inmediatamente vamos a hacer que se lave las manos. Vamos a tener lugares para lavarse enfrente y atrás en la escuela. Como dije, todos se tienen que checar la temperatura. Si les sale alta una vez, se van a ir para la enfermera y ella va a dar el segundo chequeo de temperatura y luego ella va a hacer y determinar si se tiene que ir ese niño, le va a hablar al padre. Toda la gente tiene que usar máscaras. Esto va a ser requerido. No hay opción de que no la puedas usar. Tienes que usarla. Si por alguna razón tu alumno no puede usar una máscara solamente por estas cosas que está diciendo el CDC, Si tu hijo está más chico de 2 años, obviamente no vamos a requerir, pero pues aquí no hay nadie más chico de 2 años. Si tu hijo tiene una condición donde no puede respirar o tiene asma o una condición del corazón que sea dificultad para respirar, entonces en vez de la máscara arriba de la nariz, van a tener que usar la face shield. Estas dos cosas el distrito les va a dar a todos los niños. Entonces, no va a haber jamás un instante donde un niño no traiga algo porque eso es requerido aquí en esta escuela. Si no te gusta la mascarilla y el face shield que les vamos a dar, tú puedes comprarle a tu niño el que te guste y ellos pueden usar eso. Pero nosotros por lo mínimo les vamos a dar una mascarilla y una face shield a todos los alumnos. No van a poder traer nada de la casa excepto su backpack. Es todo, nada más puede venir. Y en las clases hemos cambiado que pues tu niño o niña en grado quinto, en vez de tener 3 maestras como antes era, nada más va a ser una maestra, ahí va a estar todo el día, no se va a cambiar a otras maestras, allí va a almorzar en la clase, va a comer en la clase, no va a salir a recreo con cualquier otros niños, la maestra va a sacar a esa clase a recreo, pero hasta en el recreo no se va a usar la playground, no se van a usar las pelotas, nada más va a ser, vamos a salir a caminar, a tomar aire y luego vamos a regresarnos. Las maestras han movido todo las cosas que no se necesitan en la clase para tratar de hacer más espacio. Los desks de los estudiantes ahorita están a como 3 pies de cada uno. Si tienen muchos niños y regresan para la escuela, entonces van a estar poco cerca a los niños. Pero si nada más vienen unos pocos, sí podemos asegurarnos que los niños se sienten más lejos. Pero pues ahorita no sabemos porque padres todavía tienen hasta agosto 10 para hacer esa decisión. No sabemos cuántos niños de veras van a regresar después de las 4 semanas. Todas las puertas de la clase, ellas tienen una puerta que es para afuera. Se va a requerir que se abra esa puerta durante cada clase para que aire fresco entre. Los niños no van a poder compartir útiles para nada. No le puedes prestar un lápiz a tu amigo. No, eso no se va a permitir. En el pasillo se va a marcar dónde son cada 6 pies. Hay signs en toda la escuela que te dice, tápate la nariz, no toques nada, lávate las manos, así para tratar de acordarle a nuestros alumnos lo que tienen que hacer. Cuando vayan a la clase de gimnasio, esa en realidad va a ser la única clase donde van a salir de su salón para ir al gimnasio, pero vamos a tratar de hacer esa clase afuera en vez de estar en el gimnasio. Obviamente, si está lloviendo y todo, pues se va a tener que hacer adentro, pero vamos a tratar de usar lo de afuera lo más posible. Y lo demás, pues, es de grado 6. Ok, la biblioteca no se va a usar para nada. Niños no van a ir a la biblioteca, no van a checar libros que se cuidan. Van a poder checar libros electrónicos. Así no tenemos que preocupar de que otros niños han tocado esos libros. Ya dije que la comida es en la clase, no se va a usar la cafetería para nada para comer y los niños se van a tener que lavar las manos antes y después de comer. Los salones tienen sinks y la maestra se va a encargar de que todos los niños se laven las manos. También para tomar agua, ya no vamos a tener las fountains donde el niño picaba y luego podía tomar agua así. Todas se van a convertir en nada más estaciones donde le pones tu botella de agua y se llena. Entonces todos los niños van a tener que traer su propia botella y van a tener tiempo para poder rellenar su agua. Esa máquina se va a limpiar muy frecuentemente. También al lado de cada de esas máquinas hay una máquina de hand sanitizer y los niños van a tener que primero usar hand sanitizer y luego usar esa máquina. Las maestras se tienen que asegurar que en el primer día que regresen les tienen que enseñar a los niños cómo es de veras lavarte las manos, cómo vamos a requerir que uses tu mascarilla. Eso se les va a enseñar y luego se les va a requerir. Las puertas las vamos a tener abiertas para que así los niños no tengan que tocar la puerta todo el tiempo. Obviamente nuestro departamento va a estar limpiando mucho más frecuente. Hasta vamos a tener una máquina que es como una máquina de aire que echa química para sanitar el baño y se seca en 90 segundos. So, 3 veces cada día los baños se van a, aparte obvio de trapear y todo eso, va a haber 3 veces durante el día que se van a sanitar con esa máquina. Los baños también les están instalando, en vez de que le tenga que tocar aquí al faucet para que se abra, van a hacer que no tengas que tocar nada y las toallitas salen y la agua sale. Eso está, ahorita el distrito estamos cambiando todo eso. Y la última cosa es la área de la enfermera va a tener 2 áreas, una para los niños que de veras pensamos que es una emergencia del virus y luego los niños regulares que vienen a tomar medicina o a lo mejor se cayeron y necesitan un poquito de hielo. Entonces se va a dividir esa oficina de nuestra enfermera en 2 para asegurarnos que esos niños nunca vayan a sentarse al lado o cosas así. Eso es todo. ¿Tiene unas preguntas?